So, very good evening to all of you present here and joining us today on this webinar. So, thank you for joining the Burlington English webinar on Introduction to Holistic Progress Card. So, we will look to understand what's the HPC all about, implementing it in a classroom educational setting. So, it's going to be a comprehensive approach to assessing student progress. And we'll have none other than our own Dr. Swati Popat with us. So before we begin, a little bit of an introduction, I think is a mandate. Yeah. So while all of you are joining us, we'll make the most out of every minute that we have on us today for this very important session. So just to introduce Dr. Swati, she's a renowned name, of course, and she's a global early years childhood expert with over about 34 years of experience. And she's coined this term, very interesting term that we have over here of education, which is like a guiding philosophy for her for all the curriculums that she has developed. And she has written more than about 25 books for teachers, parents, and children. And she's also presently the president of the Early Childhood Association. And she's also the advisor for our early years, the Burlington Magic of Early Years program. So we are very happy to have her with us today evening. So ma'am, without much ado, over to you, and please take us to this very interesting session of HPC. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Swapnil, for that wonderful introduction. I always get embarrassed with introductions, but thank you so much. And namaskar to each and every one of you who have joined us today on a Saturday evening for the fourth Saturday, 4 o'clock webinar of Burlington. You all must always watch out for this fourth Saturday, 4 o'clock workshop that Burlington hosts. I think it's a wonderful initiative and I must congratulate them. I must also congratulate them on the fantastic early years series that they have come out with. They have got 5 stars from ECA in the quality audit, and it's a must look series. Everybody who is in early years, I would urge them to have a look at that series. So, today we are going to talk about the holistic progress card. We are all aware of the NEP 2020 and post that the NCF 2022, which came out for the foundational years, which spoke about the holistic progress card. So basically, as a country, we love to assess children, we love to test children, and we love to give out report cards. And that's what the NEP does not want us to do now. So that's what in this 1 hour webinar, I'm going to help you explore the different aspects of the holistic progress card. But please understand, uh, it will require more in depth understanding. What I'm trying to give you is just an appetizer. So let's start. Let's go to the first slide and let's start to understand the holistic progress card. Now, if you see the cover page of the National Curriculum Framework, you will see this design, which is like a circle. It's called the Mobius strip. And a Mobius strip stands for continuity. And that's why our national curriculum framework has this design on it, because they want a continuity to always be there, whether it is between the curriculum and assessment, whether it is between growth and development, whether it is between the foundational years and the preparatory years and beyond. They want a continuity. They don't want things to be working in silos. And the problem with our assessment systems till date was that the report cards basically don't have a kind of a continuity between curriculum, development, and assessment. Let's see the next slide. So these are the 4 documents that have been released post the NEP 2020. So you have the National Education Policy 2020, then you have the National Curriculum Framework for the foundational stage, you have the National Curriculum Framework for school education, and you have the NIPUN, which is the document for literacy and numeracy. Let's see the next slide. So, collectively, if we had to look at all those 4 documents, it's a collective 1,352 pages. So if you only look for early years, it still comes to 752 pages. Wow. We might not have that much time to understand it so deeply. So, what the ECA, the Early Childhood Association, has done is we've created an A to Z for teachers to have like a ready reckoner that they can refer to. So, you must go on to the Early Childhood website and you must download the A to Z and you must use it. Let's go to the next slide. This is the website of the Early Childhood Association where you can download it from. Now let's move on to the next slide. Let's understand what does the National Curriculum Framework for Foundational Years, which means FS, Foundational Stage, say about the Holistic Progress Card. And you will see here it's given on what page numbers 182 to 184. It says that the HPC is a multidimensional report that reflects in great detail the progress as well as the uniqueness of each learner in cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains. So, which means we are talking about not only the intelligence, which means the cognition, but emotional, social, and physical development. It also says that it will reflect in great detail, which means you can't just say A grade and B grade and C grade. You can't do that. That's not great detail. And it also celebrates not only the progress of a child, but also celebrates the child's uniqueness. So when you put all this together, that's when you get the holistic progress card. Let's see the next slide. Now, I made a comparison between our traditional report cards that we are presently using in schools to the holistic progress card. So, a traditional report card basically ends up judging and labeling children into slots. This child got more A's and that child got more B's, or we talk about marks. This child got more 80 out of 100, or we talk about percentages. In any case, it judges and labels a child. Whereas a holistic progress card will give a trajectory of growth, which means now your child is here and now your child is here. So there means there is a kind of a positiveness that there is a movement in my child's growth. Traditional report card gives grade, marks, percentages, which all decrease the self-esteem of the child. Whereas in a holistic progress card, the trajectory helps parent understand that this is where the child is, but that doesn't mean that this is the end. This is where he can progress to. ट्रेडिशनल रिपोर्ट कार्ड इज अ वन साइज फिट्स ऑल, बस यही है, तुम्हारा बच्चा बुद्धू है, ये बच्चा बहुत इंटेलिजेंट है, हो गया. No, a holistic progress card helps a teacher look at every child uniquely. This child is good in sports, but this child is good in art. This child is good in this. So we are focused on what the child is progressing on. And that's why the word holistic progress card. Holistic means all around. And the last and the most important is the flow of observation or assessment is of random areas. You pick up any report card of any two schools, and you will notice this school focuses on letters, numbers, shapes, colors, and balancing and eating on their own, does not cry, listens to teacher, random. There's absolutely no link that okay, let us cover all the physical development areas or let us cover all the emotional development areas. Everything is very random. जो भी पसंद आया उसको report card में डाल दिया. No connection. Whereas the holistic progress card is focused and monitors both on learning and growth. Let's see the next slide. So these are the two documents which have come out for the holistic progress card. One has come out by the NCRT, which under Parak. So under Parak, they've come out with the holistic progress card for foundational stage. CBSC has come out with its own document on a holistic progress card. They've adapted it from Parak and they've created it for a reference point for their schools. Let's see the next slide. With the document, there is also a implementation manual, something that teachers can use to understand the holistic progress card. So both again NCRT and CBSE have come out with it for teachers. Let's see the next slide. Now let's start at the basic. Let's start to understand what is an assessment and what is the kind of assessment that our schools are tend to use. Like if I were to say I passed my 10th board exam, then it would be all about percentages. I gave an exam and I got my percentage. So basically what we were doing is, um, we were doing a formative kind of an assessment. What is actually required is it summative or is it formative? Which one? Which one do you think is the right one? Let's select. Let me show you a summative assessment and let me show you a formative assessment. So, a summative assessment, if I were to give you an analogy, is like presenting a finished dish to a food critic. तो आपने सब काम कर दिया है और आपने फूड क्रिटिक को वो दिखाया, एंड देन द फूड क्रिटिक से सॉल्ट कम है, doesn't taste that well, looks horrible, you know. And if you go to it, isn't that what we do at the end of a board exam? We study the whole year and then we give an exam and then they come and criticize us. नहीं marks ठीक नहीं है, there's spelling ये है वो है. So a summative assessment basically only judges you on the final product. It has no scope of making changes, which means had you guided me throughout the year, maybe I could have performed better. But you guided me at the end of a session. You took a test at the end of the session. You took a test at the end of a term. You took a test at the end of the year. You just summed up my assessment. And now there's no scope for me to improve. So, what we have been used to is actually a summative assessment. Let's see the next slide. So, then what should we have? We should have a formative assessment. A formative assessment, again, if I were to use an analogy, is like the teacher tastes the food that you are preparing and then tells you, I think you need a little more salt, sweetheart. And then she watches how you are frying it and she says, no, 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 stay away from the flame. So while you were doing the cooking, there was somebody guiding you. And no wonder you came out with a good assessment. You came out with something in which you made progress. So both the teaching and the learning gets adapted when there is a formative assessment. So the holistic progress card is actually telling you have a formative assessment. Let's see the next slide. So a holistic progress card, in short, has to have both this. It has to have a developmental assessment, which means I am a 3-year-old child, but in my class, there will also be a 3-year, 8-month child. Are you going to compare us together? He's 8 months older than me. How can you compare the two of us together? You can't. So there should be a developmental assessment that am I developing how a 3-year-old child should be developing in my language, in my physical skills, in my socio-emotional development? Am I developing? Who's going to tell me that? Who's going to tell the parent that? So that's called a developmental assessment. And then there is a learning assessment. You taught me letters, numbers, shapes, colors, rhymes. Am I learning them? So that's called a learning assessment. So when you have both, that's called a holistic progress card. Let's see the next slide. Now, assessment, when we talk about assessment, you need to learn how to observe. So teachers need to know how to observe. And to become observers, to do assessment, you need to have knowledge of child development. You need to know ages and stages, which means if my child is 4-year-olds, what is the stage at which the child will be in physical development? What do I monitor this child on? What do I observe in this child? And how do I know whether it is going on correctly or not? So you need to have a knowledge of child development. Without knowledge, we will misunderstand and we'll make life difficult for everybody. And we also need to understand that every child develops at their own speed. For example, children learn to walk between the age of 10 months to 18 months. So just because a child started walking when the child was 10 months and another child is still at 12 months and not walking, doesn't mean this child is dumb and this child is smart. Nah. The development of every body happens at its own pace. There is a window of development. As I said, the window of development is 10 months to 18 months for a child to walk. If after 18 months the child does not walk, then we need to start getting a little worried about it because the child's developmental window has passed. But when it comes to learning, we don't give this window to children. We say you are in the junior KG, so you must know colors and you must know numbers. But my child is 4 years in junior KG and your child is 4 years, 10 months. How can you judge my child on that child? He's got a 10-month advantage over my child. And that's something we all don't realize, and we are not able to communicate it to parents. So we need to observe children. Let's see the next slide. So, what should teachers observe? Let's see the next slide. So, you will say, okay, let me use the Panchakosh and let me observe the physical development, the socio emotional. So, you will have to decide what are the parameters, what are the learning domains, what are the areas of development that you want to observe on. Number two, let's see the next slide. Or you can say that vikas is also progress, right? So sharirik vikas, pranik vikas, mansik vikas, bauddhik vikas, chaitsik vikas. Shall I make these my parameters for observation? Okay, so these are the ages and stages that I will observe them on. Let's see the next slide. Or for example, after you've selected all these parameters, you need to know that, okay, social skills. My child is 3 year old or 4 year old. What is my child supposed to be capable of in social skills, in emotional regulation, in empathy, and then I put my comment after observing the child that works cooperatively with peers, identifies and expresses emotions, demonstrates empathy, helps others when they are upset. So, this is an example of social and emotional development. Let's see the next slide. Physical development. So, there again, I will do observations under all the criteria. I won't make my own criteria. As I said, you have to take developmentally given criterias of ages and stages. And then you will write your indicators. Let's see the next slide. Same with cognitive development. So these are just examples of what are the kind of areas that you need to observe, but they are all given in the holistic progress card. Let's see the next slide. Critical, creative and critical thinking. So you understood, it's not like a report card जिसमें suddenly color आएगा, which colors is the child able to recognize, then shapes, then shares and waits for the turn. No, you have to put them under the areas of development. And sometimes we ignore creative and critical thinking development. We only focus on cognitive development and emotional development, and that's about it. No, we have to focus on other areas also. Let's see the next slide. Now, there are some words given in the HPC, in the NEP, and they are curriculum goals, domains, competencies, and learning outcomes. So you will constantly see these words being used. And a lot of people have explained these words, but then I said, to make it even more simpler, let's use an analogy. What is a curriculum goal? So, a curriculum goal is reaching a specific destination. Say, I want to go to Mumbai. That's my goal. I want to teach my child how to write. That's my curriculum goal. I want to teach my child how to share with others. That's my curriculum goal. I want to reach Mumbai city. Domain. Domain means, if I have to put it in the analogy, the mode of transport. How will I reach Mumbai? Will I drive to Mumbai? Will I fly to Mumbai? Will I take a train? So, my curriculum goal was, I want to teach the child to write. My domain. How? How am I going to teach my child to write? Then comes competencies. Competency means, while I'm doing this traveling, what if I face problems? How will I solve them? So, what if my child is not able to hold the pencil properly? What are my competencies? What are the competencies that I will require in the child? And have I prepared the child for it? Did I do fine motor development exercises? Did I do perception exercises? So that comes competency. And then comes your learning outcomes. Learning outcome means arriving at your destination safely and on time. Very importantly. So when you look at this analogy, you will realize, oh my God, this is so easy. Now I've understood it. Now, when I'm planning my curriculum, I know that I can't start with learning outcomes. I have to start with the curriculum goal. So I can put the curriculum goal and my learning outcome, that this is my goal and this is the outcome I want. But beach mein kya? What's the bridge? And your bridge becomes your domain and your competencies. Let's see the next slide. So it's like reaching a milestone. And that is the example that has been given in front of you. But let's understand this even more in detail. Let's see the next slide. So, a domain is like the area of development that the child needs to work on to reach a milestone. For example, language and literacy, mathematics, social emotional learning, physical development. Let's see the next one. Competencies, uses vocabulary to communicate effectively. So, all this is developed even further. Now, let's see the last one, which is your learning outcomes. So it's very, very important that when you study them together, you will realize your curriculum actually has to have these four superstars and in the right order. Because if they are in the wrong order, then you are somewhere confusing children, you're confusing yourself, and you're confusing the entire assessment process. Let's see the next slide. So let's see how it can look in practice. So the curriculum goal is children will develop problem solving skills. Problem solving skills in which domain? So domain is mathematics. What is the competency? I want to make them use logical reasoning to solve problems. What is the learning outcome? The child should be able to solve simple math problems using objects and counting. Let's take another one. Curriculum goal is develops social skills. What's the domain? Domain is socio-emotional learning. What's the competency? How will I judge? Shares toys with friends. And what will be the learning outcome? Shows an increase in sharing toys with friends during playtime. So you see, that's how you break up your curriculum so that you end up with assessment. Let's see the next slide. Curriculum goals and competencies are given in your NEP, in your NCF 2022, and they are also given in the HPC documents, both of Parak and of CBSE. Refer to them. So your competencies have already been identified. Let's see the next slide. Here they continue again, the curriculum goals and competencies. Let's see the next slide. Now, you can also call them the outcomes for learning. Learning outcomes, remember we said learning outcomes? Learning outcome is where your assessment is, है ना? That the child was able to share or the child was not able to share. Now, if your learning outcome is that the child was not able to share and you put it in a report card and you just gave it to the parent, that's not the end of the curriculum. That actually should tell you now what to plan for this child. So look at point number 3. It says learning outcomes enable teachers to plan their content, pedagogy, and assessment towards achieving specific competencies. And to understand this in further, I want you to refer to the NCF document. It is given in the Annexure 1, page 64 onwards. Your report card till now was telling you your child is a C when it comes to sharing. Now the problem is of the parent. आपने report card दे दिया, parent का problem है. Now, holistic progress card is saying what? When you reach that learning outcome and you realize that the child is not sharing, now starts your addition into the curriculum. Now, this again becomes your curriculum goal. Let's see the next slide. So, how do I observe children? How do I do observation? Do I just sit like this and keep on observing them? Where will it take me? So, there are different ways in which you can do observation. Let's see the next slide. The first one is called a checklist, a checklist or a pre coded category. So, what do you do in that? In that, you prepare a checklist and you put all the things that you want to observe on the left hand side. And on the top, you put all the children's names. And what I do, I go one step forward and I tell teachers to also put their birth date. Because when you put their birth date, you won't end up thinking, oh my God, Anisha is not performing as well as Mary. Because you will realize Mary is born in March and Anisha is born in December. So Mary has reached that developmental milestone, Anisha has not. So it's very, very important for you to sit with a checklist which has their birth dates on it. Now you will make all the children do an activity in which they are standing on one leg for 6 seconds because it's part of your physical development. And then you're watching, is Mary able to do it? Yes. Is Shahrukh able to do it? Yes. Is Anisha able to do it? Well, she's trying. And is Johnny able to do it? Yes, sometimes. So you are ticking according to that. So that's called a checklist. You've used a checklist. Let's see the next slide. Or you can use a time sampling. Usually when children are naughty, not behaved in class, does not focus, we tend to just label them. This child never pays attention in the class. Why not find out why this child is not paying attention? So here was this child who the teacher was complaining that she never looks at me when I'm telling a story. She's not focused. So we decided to do a time sampling. So what is a time sampling? So you write down the exact time when the child's behavior, movement, focus changed. So look at this. It says 10:1 sitting quietly looking at the teacher. 10:2 concentrating on the picture being shown in the group. 10:3 the child started playing with her socks. Now she's lost complete focus. Teacher kuch dikha rahi hai. Not bothered. I am playing with my socks. 10:4 even though I'm playing with my socks, I respond to my name being called by the teacher, which means my attention was still there on the teacher. My eyes were on my socks. And 10:5, she also has her hand up to answer a question which is about the story. So, what did this time sampling tell me? The time sampling told me that this child, even though she does not look at what the teacher is showing, this child is very much aware of what is being taught in the class. Maybe the child is an auditory learner and not a visual learner. Or maybe what the teacher was showing was so boring for the child that the child preferred to just hear the teacher rather than see those boring flashcards. So I will not put the blame on the child now because I did a time sampling which told me so much more about this child. Let's see the third way in which you can do observation. Let's see the next slide. It's called tracking. Tracking is where you draw a diagram of the classroom and you want to know how much time does each child spend in each activity or where does the child move around in the class. Then you do a time tracking. So if you see this child entered at 9:10, spent some time and went into the slide climbing frame area. At 9:15, the child left from there and went to the art area, spent only 1 minute in the art area, and then went to the sand and water area where this child spent some more time. So, which means this tracking tells me the child did not go to the book area. That means the child does not like to sit with books. The child does not like art. The child either likes climbing activities or sensory activities. Now I know that if I want to bring any improvement in this child about any learning skill, I can use these two kind of activities to attract the child. So it's giving me an insight about the child's likes and dislikes. Let's see the next slide. How often to observe? Then that would be your question. कितनी बार observe करना चाहिए? Either you can observe every child every week, every month, every term. It depends on you. And what do I do with that information? You make a direct comparison of the child. Not with another child. Direct comparison of the child's development previously. So this time when I observed the child, and how is it comparing to my last observation of the child? Because that will tell you whether the child has moved ahead, learned, etc. Record the child's progress and learn what to do now to help this child progress further. That's what observations are for. Let's see the next slide. So, in your NCF 2022 6.3.1.2 section, it's given principles for analyzing evidence from assessment, and some rules are given there. That teachers should not focus on what children don't know and can't do. They must focus on what children know and can do. That's why it's called a holistic progress card. Focus on what the child can do. Celebrate that. Teachers should analyze evidence to judge the extent to which children have demonstrated. It means evidence lao. If you are saying my child can write letter A, what is the evidence that you have? Is the child able to write letter A every time you give it or only sometimes you give it? So acquisition of skills pe unko judge karo. Are they able to do it completely, partially, or incorrectly? Remember, I said Mary is able to stand on one foot completely. Imran is able to stand but keeps falling down. So he is able to do it partially. Whereas another child, Samiksha, say for example, uh, just doesn't stand on on a single foot. She stands on both feet only. She stands on her toes if you tell her to lift up one foot. So she's doing it incorrectly. So your evidence that you gather should give you these facts. Teachers should be able to identify misconceptions or gaps in the child's learning. Teachers should use multiple sources before coming to a conclusion. ऐसा नहीं कि हाँ आज मैंने उनका balancing activity किया, they were not able to balance, this child can't balance. Why not try some other activity? Maybe after you try 2, 3, and then you come a conclusion, yeah, this child is having a little issue with balancing. And evidence gathered is not an FIR. Even an FIR put in a police station means the police will have to do investigation. आपने जो एविडेंस लिया उसके ऊपर आप काम क्या करने वाले हो? How are you going to change your curriculum now so that this child progresses? That is what the holistic progress card now wants us to do. It's not just about telling a parent where the child is, it's about helping the child move from where the child is to where we want the child to be. Simply put, let's see the next slide. So, how do we communicate this learning development to parents? Up till now, we were saying A grade, B grade, C grade, D grade, or we were saying 60 marks, 80 marks, 100 marks, or we were saying 80%, 90%, 95%, 100%. Thus, that's how we were saying it. What does the HPC now want us to do? Let's see. So the HPC says, and it's given on page 184 of the NCF 2022, they now want 4 levels defined. Okay. And what are those 4 levels going to be? The 4 levels are going to be beginning. Okay. Beginning means I have started learning it. I have started understanding it. I have started emerging, right? Then comes progressing. Progressing means in beginning, I needed a lot of help. In progressing, I am now needing a little help, but I am doing it on my own. I'm trying. I'm progressing. Uh, then comes proficient. Proficient means I'm now doing it on my own and I'm also doing it in time, which means I don't need extra time to do it. And then they've defined one more level, which is advanced. Advanced means not only am I doing it on my own, I'm finishing it and then I go and help others. So, four levels is what they have identified, that you can use your learning trajectory in this way to help parents understand. So, instead of saying your child is A grade, you can say your child is proficient. Instead of saying your child is B grade, you can say your child is beginning. And if your child is B grade, C grade, you can say your child is, so you can, instead of using these kind of terminologies which used to label, degrade, they have given us four fantastic learning trajectories to use. Let's see the next slide. You can also, if you refer to Parak and to CBSE, they say you can also use visuals. So for, say, for beginning, you can use seeds. So seeds are used every time. So in my report card, I will get seeds. That does your child share seeds? And does your child share? Somebody will have a flower. So it signifies, without saying into words, that the child is at what stage of learning that skill. So, for example, in the CBSE curriculum, they've given a lake, a tree, a cloud, and the sky. So a lake means I'm a beginner. Tree means now I'm going a little higher, which means I am progressing. Cloud means I'm proficient. I've gone a little more higher than that. And the sky means now the sky is the limit for me. I've advanced. So instead of using words, you can also use icons. Depends on how what you want to do in the HPC. Let's go to the next slide. Now, let us not also forget that the HPC not only wants us to do teacher assessment, it also wants us to do self assessment. And there is a mistake in my slide. Instead of parent assessment, it says peer assessment again. So it's self assessment, peer assessment, parent assessment. So, what is self assessment, peer assessment, and parent assessment? Let's understand this further. Let's see the next slide. So, on page 183 of the NCF 2020, they've given you a self assessment idea that for these young children, you can use emojis and you can actually ask the child, did you like this worksheet? And then there are options for the child to choose from, that yes, I liked it, or no, I did not like, or it was okay. So you are making them reflect. And that's so important. So self assessment can be done in this way. Let's see the next slide. In the CBSE and the NCRT, HPC also, they've given you examples like this, that you can use emojis and you can try to make them do their own self assessment. Similarly, you can start taking parent assessments. That if I am saying that my child was able to do the worksheet in on time, I will ask the parent, I'm going to give you homework today, tell me if the child was able to do it at the same time at home. So what does the parent say about the child's social development at home? So take inputs, that's what they want. And they are also saying take friends input, which means ask children, who is the most helpful in the class, who shares with you, who do you like to sit with? So you're taking a feedback, peer feedback. So they are understanding that they can contribute as a community, they can contribute as a self, and it becomes part of the holistic progress card. Let's see the next slide. So, how to support children after assessment? ये तो कर लिया मैंने. I found out that the child is okay in sharing, which means the child is just beginning to share. But this child is proficient when it comes to writing. But this child is progressing when it comes to counting. So you saw, in different domains, I may be at a different learning trajectory. And that's okay. I can't be A in everything. That's okay. But when I find out that a child who was actually supposed to be proficient by now is still beginner, what do I do? Let's see the next slide. So that's where, again, in the NCF 2022, they've got something called GRR, Gradual release of responsibility, pages 87 and 88. And the gradual release of responsibility is nothing but scaffolding, or what Vygotsky called ZPD. Let's see the next slide and I'll explain it to you. It says, first, the teacher will do. So I do. Second step is we do. So, at first time, she models it to the children or shows it to the children how to do. Then we do, which means now she will help the children to do it. And the third step should be you do, which means I'm going to watch and you are going to do. Now, why is it called gradual release of responsibility? Some children will go from I do to we do to you do instantly, but some children will still require your help. So the children who don't require your help, you will release your responsibility. But with those who require your help, you will release your responsibility gradually and make sure that they are able to do it on their own. It should move from teacher responsibility to student responsibility. And in the middle is where the teacher's expertise lies. Let's see the next slide. How can teachers do that? They can keep some differentiated learning activities. So, for example, I know that this child is not able to do the same worksheet as the others. So, fine, let me give this child a different worksheet. Or there is a child in my class who's so proficient that he finds the worksheet quite boring. So, then why don't I give a different worksheet? So that's also one of the aims of our NEP 2020, that we need to move from a one size fits all classroom to a differentiated learning classroom. It will take us time, but I think we will all reach there someday. Let's see the next slide. I am going to leave you with this good news that Burlington is going to launch a very detailed, hands on document about the HPC with examples, with the things that teachers can use. They're going to be launching it next month. So, all of us should look forward to the launch, because this document will really help us understand in detail, in a hands on manner, how we can create our own HPC. Thank you to all of you for being part of this workshop. And if there are any questions, I am happy to take it. As I said, this is just a teaser and appetizer about the HPC. To do an HPC is a very, very involved and a comprehensive process. And I'm sure Burlington is going to be there in this process to help all of you all. Thank you.
So thank you, ma'am, for a very insightful session. I think we'll take some questions if the although there are a lot of just I can read a lot of praises in the chats, but yeah, if the participants have any questions, I think this would be a good time to. I do have some personal questions as well, but let's wait for the participants. But yeah, if they can't beat me to it, then I'll ask you first. So, ma'am, you mentioned about time sampling. Is there a duration to the time sampling, like minute by minute, or how? What is? Yeah.
That's a wonderful question. It's called time. When you do a time sampling, you are supposed to decide before you start the time sampling, at what time do I want to do this? Which means, am I monitoring the child during snack time? What am I monitoring the child during? And how much time do I want to monitor the child for? So, for example, in that activity which I showed you, the whole idea was that the teacher said that this child does not listen and focus in the class. So
Mhm.
when we reached the stage where we found the child actually able to answer a question, that nullifies what the teacher thought, that the child does not pay attention. So even though my time sampling set for this child was for 20 minutes, I completed it within 6 to 7 minutes, because I found that what evidence I was looking for, I found it on time. So time sampling will differ on a teacher's experience, what she wants to watch, and whether she gets the evidence for it or not. I can see a question by Anupama Mukherjee. She says, so we are moving towards inclusive and diversified curriculum. Absolutely right. That's what the NEP wants. The NEP wants us to move away from this Macaulay kind of classrooms where we are just focused on making everybody do things at a particular time. We want to be inclusive. We want to understand that some children can and some children will take more time. So that mindset of ours as teachers needs to change. And there are diverse kind of learners. There are lookers, listeners, movers. There are auditory learners, visual learners. So we should keep our minds open for all of them. So yes, your statement is absolutely right. We also have Richa Singh, who says, what if a parent will not cooperate for this kind of a report card? I always say that that's our challenge. If a parent is not convinced, then maybe we were not able to convince them better. And this time we have a plus point. We have a whole policy to back us. So when every state government will bring in their own HPC, parents have no say. Then parents will say, we just have to say, look, this is what the board has mandated, we have to do it accordingly. So why has the CBSE come out with an HPC document? Because the CBSE is going to follow HPC. तो आपको पेरेंट्स को कन्विंस करने की जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ेगी, आपको बोलना है कि सीबीएसई ने बोला है हमको ये फॉलो करना है, हम फॉलो कर रहे हैं. So that's going to become actually easier for all of us to do because we have the policy to support us now. Where can I find the Parak and CBSE HPC? Download it, just Google search it, and it's available free on the web. How can differentiated learning take place simultaneously? Wonderful question. So, I will tell you that's the most difficult part in a classroom. And that is why the IB education system is supposed to be one of the best in the world because they practice differentiated learning. So, what is differentiated learning? You have observed your classroom and you've realized that I have a set of children, 7 of them, who are at the beginner stage. I have another 5 who are at the progressing stage. And I have another 5 who are proficient. So I will make 3 different kinds of worksheets which have a 3 different challenge level. So the beginner worksheet will be meant for the beginner group. And again, you will ask, ma'am, how to convince parents? Well, when you talk to parents about the science behind what you are doing and how it's going to help your child, most parents convert into your style of thinking. So it's all about you pushing that agenda and keeping on explaining it to parents.
So there's a
We are
question.
not doing parent assessment. Nidhi Sharma, we are not doing the assessment of a parent. The parent is assessing their child and contributing to the holistic progress card. um, uh, I love this question by Achal Verma. She says, in today's classroom, there are many students in one class, 45 to 60 in some schools. Is HPC possible then? Anchal, I'm so happy you asked this question because a few months back, I was taking a session with municipal school teachers who have almost 80 to 90 children in their classroom. And when I did this session on observation, I realized and I said aloud, I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry, but how will you all do this observation for 80 to 90 children? And one teacher stood up and she says, Kyun nahi, ma'am? If I observe even one child every day, 90 days में I will observe 90 children. तो मेरा cycle होगा, every 90 days I will observe a different thing. And then another teacher stood up and she said, another thing क्यों? अगर आज मैं अभय को ऑब्जर्व करने वाली हूं तो मैं लिस्ट बनाऊंगी कि मुझे अभय का क्या क्या ऑब्जर्व करना है. So I will observe everything of Abhay that day and focus on Abhay that day. And in 90 days, I would have covered my entire classroom and then start the next cycle of my observation. And that teacher taught me that where there is a will, there is a way. Anurag Gupta is asking what kind of icons should be used. So you can use whatever you want. You can use animals as your icon, like a squirrel, a mongoose, a deer, and an elephant. to show the growth pathway, which means beginner, progressing, like that. Or you can use what I have done, sapling. You can use seeds and a sprout, and you can use that. So you can use different things. You can also involve parents in the selection of these icons. So when you involve them, they will agree to those icons, no? So you must involve parents in the selection of these icons. Did I cover all of them in the Q&A?
Ma'am, there's one about where can they find Parak and CBSE cards, basically.
Google it. Google it. It's there on it's available on Google. So just Google it. Google Auntie will give you everything. And yes, Nidhi Sharma has that. How can parents' assessment be unbiased? I agree with you, Nidhi. Parents can't be unbiased, but this is not a progress card जिसमें marks decide हो रहे हैं. This is just that the progress card has a contribution from all stakeholders. That's about it. So if you disagree with a parent and the parent says, okay, where sharing is concerned, you've told my child is a beginner, but when I watch him at home, my child is a proficient. So that becomes your discussion point with the parent, that means when a child is in a comfortable environment like a home, the child is able to do it. But what our aim is that the child should be able to do it also in all environments. So, and that's why we have to see at what level the child is when he's not in the comfort of the home or with your support. Because the whole idea is self learning. And that's how to convince a parent.
There's also this question by Neena Mehrotra about tier three cities, like the parents being able to understand the HPC and what needs to be done. Anything on that you would like to say?
Well, I have a school in Ichal Karanji, and I'm sure many of you have not even heard the name. So that is a tier three city, and we have been able to take the parents from a report card to a portfolio till now, and a portfolio is nothing but an HPC. So as I said, you have the power now of a policy behind you. And when all schools will be doing it, I don't think parents will question you. But I think when you believe in something and explain it to the parent that why it's going to be for the benefit of your child, I think half your battle is won there.
Okay. All right, ma'am. There are also questions about implications for middle school and secondary education, basically.
So Parak, the document is there on the website. Parak. Parak has training sessions. Parak has online seminars. Parak is doing a lot to train teachers. And believe you me, अभी तुम लोग को लगेगा कि ये तो नया नई बात है. Give it a year. Everybody will have to do it. Everybody, because the policy is going to come into place, and everybody will have to do it. In fact, if you are a CBSE school, you already have to fill it in your form जो upgrade upload करते हो ना, उसमें पूछते हैं have you started using the HPC. So it's there, it's going to be there, and the faster we adapt to it, the better it's going to be for us.
There are some questions about where can we find the presentation. So we'll be sharing this basically this session onto our YouTube channels on Burlington English. So you can follow us there and you'll get the content from there.
And as I said to all of you all, this was just an appetizer. A very detailed document I have already worked on with Burlington, and they're going to release it next month. It will give you even the minutest of details so that it will make your life easier.
I think that pretty much sums it up. Any other questions, if I can catch, I'll do so. Yeah, so also if you've attended the entire session, you will get a certificate of participation for doing the same. That is also a question here. All right, ma'am. Any final thoughts, ma'am? Just to anything
I think
lastly.
the final thoughts are the more you will start using the HPC, the easier it will become. Believe me, all of y'all, I have struggled since 1 year to understand the HPC. because I wanted to make it simple for my teachers. I wanted to make it simple for all of you, for educators who come to ECA and APER. And till now, I was not very happy with what I was coming out with. And after having worked on this document for Burlington, my own head has cleared about a lot of concepts. And in fact, we are also launching a video on the HPC, easy use of it, in next month's Early Childhood Associations conference. So you will see a lot more material floating out now to help you all. Just stay connected with Burlington, just stay connected with the Early Childhood Association, and we are there for you.
Great. All right. On that note, I think that should help all of the teachers who have joined us today. I think 1 hour has just flown by. I do not know where the time has gone. Thank you so much, Dr. Swati, for simplifying the HPC for us. And I think the analogy that you gave us, that taste the food as you prepare rather than after preparing it, I think that help that would help a lot of teachers understand about the HPC. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to all the participants who have joined us today. Have a great evening ahead and a week.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.